There is a woman in the Bible whose name most people have heard, but whose story most people have never fully understood. She was not a prophet. She was not a queen. She lived in the most condemned city on earth. And on one night, two strangers knocked on her door. She had a choice to make, and what she decided in that single moment did not just save her life. It changed the entire direction of history. This is Rahab, a woman written off by everyone around her, remembered by God, and placed in a story that history cannot tell without her name. To understand Rahab, you need to understand Jericho. It was one of the oldest cities in the ancient world. Sitting in the Jordan Valley, surrounded by fertile land and protected by massive stone walls, so thick that people built their homes inside them. The people of Jericho believed those walls made them untouchable. Before we go any further, if this story is already pulling you in, hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who loves stories like this one. Subscribe to Biblical Secret Revealed so you never miss what we put out next. Drop in the comments and type, "I stayed till the end." Let us get back to Rahab. Jericho was wealthy, strategic, and completely devoted to idol worship. The gods of Jericho were carved stone figures placed in temples and worshipped with rituals the Bible does not describe politely. It was a city that had turned its back on the living God entirely, and it had done so for generations without any consequences, until now. Rahab lived in Jericho, and she lived on the wall itself. Her house was built directly into the thick outer wall of the city. She had a window that faced the surrounding countryside. From that window she could see everything coming. She was not wealthy. She was not respected. The Bible calls her a harlot. That was her life. She was an outsider in her own city, not protected, not considered, not the kind of person anyone expected to appear in the story of a nation. She was the kind of woman history usually forgets, a face in a crowd, a name nobody writes down, invisible to everyone around her, but not to God. Something had been spreading through Jericho in the weeks before our story begins. It was not a sickness. It was not a political crisis. It was something quieter and far more dangerous than either of those things. It had been moving through the markets, the city gates, and the homes behind those thick walls. It was fear. Word had reached Jericho about the Israelites. Not rumors, real accounts, specific ones. The Red Sea had parted for them. An entire army had drowned behind them. Two powerful kings on the eastern side of the Jordan had come against them with full military force and had been completely destroyed. Israel had not lost once. The Bible records what this did to Jericho with one phrase: "The hearts of the people melted." That is the exact language used. Melted. The confidence behind those thick walls had quietly dissolved. People were going through the motions of normal life, but underneath everything was the awareness that something was coming, that their walls could not stop. Nobody was saying it out loud. That is how fear works in a city. It does not announce itself. It just changes the way people walk, the way they look at the horizon, the way they go quiet when certain names are mentioned. Israel, the Jordan River, the God who parts water. Jericho knew, and Jericho was terrified. In the middle of that quiet, terrified city, in a house built into the wall itself, Rahab was watching. She had heard the same reports everyone else had heard. She had felt the same fear moving through the city. But unlike everyone else around her, she was doing something different with what she was hearing. She was thinking. Joshua sent two men. Quietly. No announcement. Just two spies crossing the Jordan and slipping into Jericho to see the land and understand what Israel was walking into. Nobody knows exactly how they ended up at Rahab's door. What the Bible tells us is that they came to her house, and they stayed there. A house on the wall. A woman no one watched too carefully. A location with a window facing outward and an escape route nobody would think to guard. Maybe they chose wisely. Maybe God led them there. Maybe both. But someone in the city noticed, and it did not take long for the report to reach the king. The king of Jericho received word that two Israelite spies had entered the city and gone to Rahab's house. He sent soldiers immediately. They went to her door and delivered the command directly. "Bring out the men who came to you. They are spies. Hand them over." The soldiers were standing right outside, waiting. But Rahab had already moved. Before the soldiers arrived, she had taken the 2 men to the roof and hidden them under stalks of flax that were drying there. She had acted fast, and she had acted decisively. And when she went back down and opened the door, she looked the soldiers in the face and lied. She told them, yes, the men had been there. She did not deny it, but she said they had left before the city gate closed at dark. She told them she did not know where they went. She said if they moved quickly, they could probably still catch them. The soldiers believed her. They left. The gate closed behind them. Rahab went back up to the roof, and before she helped the 2 men escape, she sat down with them and said something that stops the reader completely. She told them she knew that God had already given Israel this land, that everyone in Jericho knew it, that the fear had been building since the Red Sea. And then she said something even more remarkable. She said she believed that the Lord their God was God in heaven above and on the earth below. Think about what that means. She had grown up in Jericho. No prophet had come to her. No angel had appeared. She had simply heard what God had done and believed it. She had done what the kings and fortified cities around her refused to do. She looked at the evidence and she drew her own conclusion. Her faith did not come from religion. It came from paying attention, from sitting at that window in the wall and watching a world being reshaped by a God she had never met. She did not hide the spies because she was paid. She did not do it out of calculation. She did it because she had made a decision about who God was. And that decision required her to act. That is what real faith looks like when it first appears, not in a temple, on a rooftop, in a condemned city. Before she helped them escape, she made a request. She had shown them kindness. She asked them to show her family the same kindness when Israel came. Not just herself, her father, her mother, her brothers, her sisters, everyone belonging to them. In the middle of negotiating her survival, she was thinking about the people she loved. The spies agreed, their lives for hers. And then they gave her a sign, a scarlet cord, a length of red rope to be tied in the window, the same window she would use to lower them down the outer wall to safety. When Israel came, if that cord was in the window, her household would be protected. She tied it immediately, before they were even gone. She bound that scarlet cord into the window while the night was still dark and the city gate was still sealed. One cord, one window, one line between life and death. And she did not take it down. She kept it there and she waited for what was coming. The scarlet cord is one of the most quietly powerful images in the entire Bible. A red thread hanging in a window on a wall that was going to fall. A marker of faith in a city of fear. A sign of mercy in the middle of judgment. She did not know when Israel would come. She just held on. The Israelites crossed the Jordan River and set up camp. And then something happened that nobody in Jericho expected. Nothing. For 6 days, Israel did not attack. No siege equipment, no soldiers at the walls, no arrows, no threats. They simply walked. Every day the entire army marched around Jericho once in complete silence, and then went back to camp. Can you imagine what that felt like inside Jericho? The first day, the people on the walls watched with confusion. The second day, with growing unease. By the fourth day, something worse than fear had settled in. Dread. Because this was not normal warfare. It followed no pattern they understood. And things you cannot understand are the most frightening things of all. Rahab watched from her window every day, the red cord hanging in the frame. Her family gathered inside the house. Day after day, she watched Israel walk in silence around the city that had her trapped inside it. She had done everything she could do. She had made her choice, tied her cord, brought her family in. Now she waited. Then came the 7th day. Israel rose at dawn and marched around Jericho 7 times instead of once. 7 full circles. The priests blowing their ram's horn trumpets the entire time. And when the 7th circle was almost complete, Joshua gave the command. He told the people to shout, because God had already given them the city.
And they shouted. The sound that came from Israel that day was not just a battle cry. It was 40 years of wilderness coming out all at once. It was a nation arriving at the place they had been promised. It was faith that had been tested and refined, being released in a single moment. And the walls of Jericho fell, not crumbled, not weakened over time, fell straight down. The walls thick enough to build homes inside. The walls that had made Jericho feel untouchable for generations. They collapsed to the ground. Every soldier went straight into the city from where they were standing. They did not need a gate. The wall was simply gone. The city was destroyed exactly as God had commanded. Everything under judgment. The wealth went into the treasury of the Lord. The people of Jericho did not survive. But Joshua had not forgotten Rahab. Before the walls fell, he gave specific instructions to the 2 men who had gone into Jericho. Go to her house, bring her out, keep the promise. Those 2 men went straight to Rahab's house when Israel entered the city. They brought out Rahab, her father, her mother, her brothers, her sisters, everyone in the household. They led them safely outside the camp. The house on the wall was the one house that did not fall. Her family walked out of the ruins of Jericho alive. But here is the part of Rahab's story most people never hear. She did not simply survive and disappear from history. She married an Israelite man and had a son. Her son's name was Boaz. Boaz married Ruth. Their son was Obed. Obed's son was Jesse. Jesse's son was David. King David, the greatest king in Israel's history. And from the line of David came Jesus. Rahab the harlot of Jericho is listed by name in the direct bloodline of Jesus Christ in Matthew chapter 1. The woman everyone rejected, the woman living on a condemned wall, is in the line that history cannot tell its greatest story without. God does not write people off. He writes them in.